Welcome to the SEC. Let's go. Let's go. You're finally with the big boys now, man. Are you going to be able to hang with the big boys, though? Because, I mean, this ain't the Big 12 anymore. They play defense in the SEC, Brent Venables. So you can't be allowing, scrubs like UCF to be making a mockery out of your defense. You actually got to be able to show up and match the physicality of a school like Alabama or Tennessee. Or LSU, even though LSU wasn't playing too much defense themselves. And Texas, you beat up on a weak Big 12, but when you went up against Washington in the Sugar Bowl, bro, your defense had no answers for Michael Penix and company. So how are Texas and Oklahoma going to fare in the Southeastern Conference? Now, the best conference in college football, are they going to get a reality check their first year in the SEC? Are they going to get humbled in the SEC? I believe that Texas is going to be perfectly fine in the SEC. I don't know about Oklahoma. I got to see more out of Brent Venables. It's like Oklahoma this past season only cared about beating Texas. And once they beat Texas, that's their Super Bowl. They want the same team after that. Texas, on the other hand, unless Steve Sarkisian just falls off as a head coach and he gets exposed in this conference, Texas is going to be right up there with Alabama, Georgia, and whoever else competing for the SEC championship. One, the talent's there for Texas. And two, they got more money than any other team in this conference, bro. Texas can buy anybody they want from high school or anybody they want from the transfer portal with how big and deep their wallets are down there. So talent is not going to be an issue. There's not going to be a single game that any Longhorn fans or anybody can make an excuse for Texas losing, saying that, oh, they were the more talented team. You were the fourth most talented team in college football this past season, according to 247's team talent composite rankings. So if Texas just falls off in the SEC this year, it's going to be because Steve Sarkisian was a fraud. Now, there are going to be some growing pains in this conference. There is going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. But like Josh Pate worded it, the SEC teams that you're playing against, they're going to have to adjust to you. You see, I believe Texas is going to be perfectly fine. People seem to fail to realize that when you get the right coach at a school like Texas, it doesn't matter where they're playing football. They could be playing in the MAC conference for all we care, and they still would be just as good as anybody else. You want to know why? Because it's Texas. They got money. They got resources. They got that blue blood label. They got that logo on the side of their helmet that is really recognizable to even the average casual college football fan. Everybody knows what Texas football is. Okay, so unless Steve Sarkisian just becomes a shithead coach out of nowhere, Texas is going to be perfectly fine in the SEC. They're not going to struggle. When you recruit at the level that Texas does, and you're able just to buy the best team in college football nearly year after year after year, it's going to be pretty hard for them not to be able to find ways to have success in this conference. Now, Oklahoma, on the other hand, I don't think Oklahoma is going to become irrelevant in the SEC, but I don't think that they're going to be competing for SEC titles in this conference. And I could definitely be wrong. I like Brent Venables as a coach, but I just don't think that Oklahoma right now going into 2024 is going to be any more than a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. You see, when Texas went to the SEC, we know about the resources and the deep pockets that they have, and we know that Steve Sarkisian is a pretty good coach, and they just went to the playoffs. Meanwhile, you look at Oklahoma and the way their season ended. You lost in your bowl game to Arizona, you ran into the Gus Bus. What the hell happened to Oklahoma during the second half of this season? It seems like we still don't really know just how good of a coach Brent Venables is. We know he's a decent coach. I don't believe that Oklahoma is going to be what some people say, they're going to go to the SEC and they're going to become what Nebraska has become in the Big Ten. I ain't going to go that far because they recruit at a pretty high level. Jackson Arnold was one of the highest recruits coming out of his recruiting class. They got money and they got some pretty big wallets too, but not as big as Texas wallets. And, they just lost their offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, who was the head coach of Mississippi State. Some Sooners fans would say that's not that big of a loss, but you still have to be able to put together a great coaching staff, and we still yet to see Oklahoma's defense look elite. And going into the SEC, I have major questions about Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold, you hope that this dude plays better, and I believe that he will play better, but is he good enough to get them over the top in a conference like this? Like, is Brent Venables' defense finally going to look like elite defense? You see, the SEC is no cakewalk. And I'm not saying that Texas and OU aren't going to be able to hang in this conference. I believe Texas is going to hang around. I don't know about Oklahoma. Like, Texas is going to be one of the best teams in this conference this upcoming season, 7 months away. Oklahoma, you're possibly going to be fighting for fourth place at best in the SEC this season. Like, your defense hasn't shown me any reason to be optimistic about it. I can trust Texas defense. I know that Texas is going to be ready to play when they go up against anybody. I don't know about you. Like, your defense got shredded by UCF. You lost to fucking Kansas. Like, come on, bruh. Like, you coming into the SEC and you kind of making the SEC look a little bit bad. Like, them boys just lost to Kansas. This is what's coming into the SEC. Like, for Oklahoma, they're really going to have to make some tremendous improvements. Their player development is going to have to be outstanding because I still don't believe Oklahoma is where they need to be up front on the offensive line, the defensive line, to be able to really compete for a conference title in this conference. Even if you would have had Lincoln Riley, like, I still would have been looking at Oklahoma a little bit differently if you had Lincoln Riley coming to the SEC. And I see why he did for the Pac-12. Like, he went to USC and they're in the Big Ten. And there's questions about Lincoln Riley that we're going to get answered this coming season. But you look at Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC, like, I don't think neither one of these programs are going to bottom out. Like, even if you don't like Oklahoma and Texas, I think we can all be honest and all agree. Can we all agree with this, that neither one of these two programs is going to become like losing programs where like they're winning less than 6 games, like with decent head coaches? Like, with a decent head coach, just based on the talent that you have in this conference, you should at least be able to win 6 games. Okay, like, I don't think that's too unreasonable. Now, in Oklahoma, since it's just like the coaching has to be better, because I saw a lot of bad coaching decisions by Brent Venables. That defense getting shredded by UCF in the Gus Bus. You're losing to Kansas. Like, come on, bro. You're Oklahoma. I don't care how good Kansas is, bro. Like, when you're a school like Oklahoma, you should be beating teams like Kansas. Like, losing to Kansas if you're Oklahoma is the equivalent to if you would have lost to fucking Vanderbilt. Like, if Oklahoma was to come into this conference and they lose to Vanderbilt, like, that's problematic. Like, when you're a school like Oklahoma, you gotta beat the teams you're supposed to beat, bruh. You can't be losing to no damn, Kansas, Oklahoma State, even though that is your rival. No disrespect to all my Pokies brethren out there that are subscribed to the channel, but I'm just saying, like, if there's anybody who I got concerns about, Texas is the least of my worries. You should be least concerned about Texas. Like, these boys got money, they got deep pockets, and they got a pretty good coaching staff. Steve Sarkisian is a really good head coach. All right, and you got Arch Manning, who I'm pretty confident he's going to be able to live up to the hype. He isn't going to be able to play for the first 2 years. That's perfect for him. He's going to be able to sit, learn behind Quinn Ewers, continue to get acclimated to the playbook. Texas is going to be fine for the future. Oklahoma, they got the roster. They got the talent to be a good team in this conference, to maybe be able to compete. But I still have reservations about the coaching staff. All right, and I still don't really know about Jackson Arnold. Like, I know he was a true freshman, but Nico Imamaviava, I hope I pronounced that right. I know I probably didn't, but, you know, just help me in the comment section. Give me the little name pronunciation thing so I can get better with learning how to pronounce it. But I feel confident about how Nico is going to have Tennessee looking next year. Like, he ain't come out struggling against Iowa, and Iowa has a way better defense than Arizona. Like, this is the same Arizona team that damn near lost to Colorado with no offensive line. Like, come on, man. Like, I have more concerns about Oklahoma and the SEC than I do Texas. I don't think Texas is going to miss a beat in this conference. Like, my biggest fear with the SEC, with Texas and Oklahoma being in it, is that this conference is going to be just so stacked that everybody's going to cannibalize each other. And it's going to be hard to make the argument that this is still the best conference in college football when you may not have any undefeated teams. Like, if you go undefeated in the SEC, bro, like, you're going to win it all, bro. Like, people keep saying how the Big Ten is going to be better than the SEC. Like, no way, bro. Like, the Big Ten went from a 3-team conference to a 6-team conference. Hooray. In the SEC, bro, like, you're like 8-9 teams deep in this thing, bro. Like, it's more great teams in this conference than just Georgia and Alabama. Like, now you're going to have Texas in there. You're going to have Oklahoma in there. You're going to have Ole Miss, who's coming up. And then that's not even including the SEC team that we get every single season that comes out of nowhere, like how Tennessee did with Hendon Hooker, or how Missouri just did this past year with Eli Drinkwitz, winning 10 plus games for the first time since 2014, 2013. Like, you see, I think people think that Texas and Oklahoma may come into this conference and be what Texas A&M and Missouri were their first couple of years. Like, they were a little bit of lightning in the bottle. You know, Texas A&M got into the SEC and they had Johnny football. And then Missouri had a really great defense. You know, you had Shane Ray, Michael Sam. And then after that, you just nosedive. I don't think that's going to happen. Like, Steve Sarkisian, this dude is a really good coach. All right, I know that he's had a few destinations that he's been in the past that hasn't worked out for him. He's had some off-the-field things that he's had to beat. He's had some personal demons that he's had to fight. But I truthfully believe that Steve Sarkisian is becoming one of the best coaches in college football. Like, Texas football has gotten better every single season under him. I don't think Texas is going to fall off in the SEC. Oklahoma, like, I don't think you're going to become irrelevant, but I just think there's a good chance you could be a middle-of-the-pack team in this thing. So that's my thoughts on how Texas and Oklahoma are going to fare in the SEC, at least for 2024.